G'day everybody, back in the office today, which means I'm probably not reviewing tools or one of the bits of farm machinery. Today we're doing something else. This is a review of a service, and a service that I would have used for many years had I known about it. I have used that type of service many times before, but something that I thought would be useful to you. Now if you're a car nut like me, then the name redbook.com.au would be very familiar to you. I've used Redbook for researching cars for years, decades even, probably at this point, even when I was before I was old enough to drive. Redbook, I remember before Redbook all went online, absolutely coveting the actual physical Redbook that dealers used to have to value cars. I just really wanted one of them and thought it was just brilliant when it went online. But anyway, Redbook will be well known to you. In recent years, I've used it more for researching specifications, GVMs, GCMs, tow ratings, curb weights, power. What does this particular used car have in the facelifted model compared to the pre-facelifted model? What additional power does it have? What additional features does it have? Is it worth paying the extra for the facelifted model? Whatever. But that's not exactly what I'm talking about today. But while Redbook may be familiar to you, what might not be familiar to you is Redbook Inspect. Redbook Inspect is an inspection service. I've used inspection services for years. Many of my cars have gone through an inspection service prior to me purchasing them. And principally because I've always generally lived in regional Australia, and a car that I'm looking at is generally in metropolitan Australia, and it might not even be in the same state. I've owned a lot of niche cars, small low volume cars over my time, and before I've gone to inspect them, especially if I've got to take a flight or a very long drive, it often can save me a bit of money just to send someone out to have a look at it. Typically, and without exception, I think, prior to using Redbook Inspect, I'd always use one of the breakdown kind of automotive specialist companies like the NRMA in New South Wales, RACV in Victoria, the RAA in South Australia, RACWA in WA, RACQ Queensland, etc. I've used those services exclusively previously. Now there is a little wrinkle with that, is I've found that when you're looking at, if you're ever looking at an imported vehicle, I used to import cars on occasion and have owned multiple imported cars. Sometimes a body like that won't really want to do it, or they'll outright refuse to do imports. I have had imports refuse to be inspected by those sorts of bodies in the past. And this time around, I was looking at an imported vehicle. This was when I bought my Ram 3500. It was in Adelaide. I was in New South Wales. I couldn't get over there straight away, and I wanted an inspection before I booked the flight, because the flight to get over there and back, if it was no good, was going to cost me $1,000, and Redbook Inspect's inspection was a fraction of that. So I thought that would be money well spent before I spoke too much with the dealer. I spoke to the dealer, said this is what I want to do. He said no problems, it'll stand up to any test, but really confident in the vehicle. I said no worries. So I started having a look through places. I actually rang the RAA first. I'm an NRMA member in New South Wales at the moment, so it does still, I think, get me the discount with reciprocal interstate rights, booking through them. However, they didn't want to do the inspection. Ram, imported vehicle, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, so back to the drawing board. There was a number of other people that did inspections. I had a look at their pricing lists and what they offered, and Redbook Inspect looked quite compelling. And even then, I did do the Google review thing, and the Google reviews of Redbook Inspect in Adelaide were actually quite good. There was a number of people that said the service was quite good. So I thought, all right, well, you can only be wrong. Let's book it and see how we go. So booked an inspection with Redbook Inspect. So this is what we want to do, a Ram 3500. This is the dealer, blah, blah, blah. And then about, probably I would say definitely within 30 minutes, possibly within 20 minutes, it was really fast. I got a phone call from the person who was going to do the inspection in Adelaide. They rang me, they said, okay, I've rung the dealer, we're going to do it today, so same day, which was quicker than I had hoped. That was brilliant. I'm going to do it today, do it this afternoon. I did all this in the morning, so I'll do it this afternoon. Is there anything you want me to check? Which might seem like a fairly rudimentary question, might seem like a fairly basic question. However, in my experience, seldom, if ever, I had been contacted by the actual person who was going to do the inspection and said, look, is there anything additional outside the usual stuff we do that you want me to check? And I was really pleased about that, because in this case there was some things I wanted them to take particular attention to. And those things were with the Rams, or any of the US trucks, like the F-250, F-350, the Silverado 2500, the Sierra, Ram 2500. All of these vehicles are very heavy, and they have heavy engines. They're very hard on the front ends. Not much at all to see a front end that needs to be completely rebuilt within a time frame of 150,000 Ks or less in some instances. My brother's a diesel mechanic and was lamenting a Silverado that came into him not that long ago with under 100,000 Ks that needed a full front end rebuild. The ball joints were completely shot. Now, admittedly, that vehicle may have done some hard driving, I'm not sure, but it's not uncommon. They are very, very heavy in the front end and can be hard on that front suspension and steering components. So I said, I want you to check the ball joint. Please, particular focus on the ball joints, the bushes, the sway bar bushes, the end links, suspension, steering. Please check that out. Make sure that that's all okay. Also, check the engine, obviously. Outside of anything that you're going to check, please check the blow-by, if any, or if there is some, how bad it is, length of starting, obviously the usual stuff you check with in terms of smoothness of running and all this sort of stuff. Please also, panels are important. Yep, you're going to do that anyway. Interior trim generally, you're going to do that anyway. But check all the switch gear, particularly anything that's been converted from left to right. Check the steering, make sure that's obviously been turned from left to right. How sloppy is it? Hopefully not at all. Hopefully nice and tight steering. But all that switch gear that's been moved from left to right, switches on the driver's seat, the power windows and mirrors, the dash, is everything, cup holders sitting in, because it's got a cup holder that folds out, the plastics, anything that they've modified in the conversion process, can you please check that out? And I don't want any electrical gremlins. Windscreen washers, the wipers, the headlights, anything electronic. The radio, yeah, okay, it'd be great if it works, but I'm probably going to change that out anyway. But anything that's been modified, please tell me about anything on the vehicle that's been modified. Can you tell me that as well? So, general stuff that you would check on a vehicle was principally what I was looking at, but with extra focus on a couple of things which I knew could give trouble with the Ram. And because this was a used one and reasonably old by the time I came to buy it, is, if I needed to do a full suspension steering rebuild coming into it, I need to factor that into my price. If it's got excessive blow-by, I'm probably not going to own it. Please check the service history and tell me what it is. Some photos would be great so that I can see how it's been maintained. Check the transmission oil. Is it clean? Does it smell burnt? Has it obviously been a long time between it's been changed? Check the air filter. How long has that been since changed? If you whack it up and you bang it and just copious amounts of dust come out of it, has it been changed for a while? Just the little things that you would probably do when you check things. And granted, probably a lot of the things that I did ask for, he would have checked anyway. And I was just highlighting I wanted particular focus on a couple of things. Stuff like, does the air conditioner work? You're probably going to check that anyway. Anyway, so he went and did the inspection. Wrote up the report and rang me that afternoon before business hours closed, and he ran through everything with me. And then he said, I'm going to email you the report. Please call me back if you read the report and there's something that doesn't make sense. But this is what I found. Here's some things that you might want to be aware of. And based on what I've told you, is there anything other questions that you wanted me to answer? And is there anything that you wanted me to check that I obviously didn't cover in either now in me talking to you or in the report? Please ring me back and tell me. I was blown away. Like, most of the time I've asked for this service to be completed, I've sent the person out and I've got an email or and some sort of notification. There's your report, job done. Thank you very much. It might be just because I've used, maybe under servicing services in the past. And this is why this really impressed me, but I thought this service was absolutely great. So this is the report that I got. It's very chunky. This is printed out, lots of pages in it, and this is printed double-sided. So there's lots and lots of things, lots of photos, which is good. It gives you a rating A star rating on everything gives you the details of the compliance plate, and gives you all the information that you need to do any other checks that you might want to do. There's lots of photos in it that is really good. Covers off interior, so items that they checked. They give you the principal areas that they review on: road test, engine bay, interior, exterior, tyres, wheels and brakes. So they're the overall headings, and then it breaks it down. So for example, interior, seats, seat belts, other trim, the radio, rear window demister, air conditioner and heater demister, washers and wipers, horn, doors, locks and hinges, window operation, dash warning lights and gauges, all other lights and anything else, as in other. And they give you a whole bunch of photos of the interior to show you how it all looks. And that, these are all pictures of the interior. Lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures, which I really like. Pictures of the interior are still going. There they are. And while the interior wasn't the principal thing that I was interested in, that was pretty comprehensive. So then when you move to the exterior, rust, any body repairs, glass and mirrors, sunroof, aerial or convertible roof. Obviously it's not a convertible, but anyway. Frames and cross members, underbody parts, front suspension, rear suspension, steering components, transmission housing, exhaust, differential, drive shafts and anything else. And in anything else it might say, oh, this is something. So for example, in other it said the steering damper dust boot was loose, which it was loose, and a zip tie fixed that after I bought it. But they do look for other things that aren't listed on there. That's just an example. And then give you lots of pictures, compliance plate, exterior, different parts of the exterior, underside, with particular reference to anything that they may have come across. That one there is a picture of the air. It had airbags in the rear suspension, which I didn't know about. That's nice little plus. Engine bay, engine noise, the items under engine bay, engine noise, fluid level, fluid leaks, mountings, hoses and pipes, water pump and fan, the ignition system, fuel system, battery, radiator and cap, drive belts and pulleys, brake booster, master cylinder pressure and ABS function. Anything other, and the other comments again, the inspector did put a couple things in. Other, vehicle drove well on road test, smooth and progressive power delivery, smooth gear changes, no abnormal noise issues, notice it drove very well. And then detailed photos of your engine bay, the engine, engine bay, 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 lots and lots of pictures. Then we get to tyres, wheels and brakes, tyres, wheels and rims, spare tyre and rim, brake hose, calipers and pipes, brake pads, brake disc, brake linings, wheel cylinders, brakes and drums, park brake, wheel bearings and anything other. The only other thing noted that there was a centre cap missing. And then pictures of all the tyres. The tyres were in good nick. Wheels. Road test, start and idle, and items under road test, start and idle, ease of idle, engine noise, engine performance, exhaust smoke and emissions, gearbox drive operation, differential, steering and suspension, brake operation, speedo, cruise control, four-wheel drive, camshaft and drive belt, owner's manual and service intervals. This was really good. I did ask them to get me photos of the service interval, the owner's manual, which they did, which was really good. And then they give you an overall rating with some additional comments as well. And the additional comments were very useful. The principal thing that I found of benefit was their willingness to call me and to have this discussion over the phone. That was really, really good. Speed was absolutely fantastic. I would have done lots and lots of inspections over the year. I'd be somewhere between half a dozen and a dozen at this point. I don't remember exactly how many on used vehicles, and this is bar none the best service I've ever received. Worth the review, I thought, because I just was so impressed by what they did. Now, I assume that Redbook Inspect is a national chain. I assume that Redbook has licensed that out. But certainly my experience with Redbook Inspect in Adelaide was just absolutely brilliant. Generally with my reviews, when I come to the end of it, the principal thing that I'm looking to advise all of you, dear viewers, is would I do it again? Would I use this service again? Absolutely. And so much would I use this service again is that if I was going to do an inspection in any capital city in Australia, They have displaced NRMA, RACQ, RACV, etc. from my principal place to look, and then I will use this service, a service like this again at some point. That is for sure. They would be the first place that I called because the service was so good. Really, really, really impressed with it. Very, very thankful to the person who did the inspection. So much so, I actually ended up at the time doing my first ever Google review just because I was so thrilled with the service I got. The fellow who did it was absolutely so nice, prompt, thorough, really concerned about what I actually wanted to see and what I actually wanted to know. So can't recommend that highly enough. As you can tell, very enthusiastic about it. I hope that if you try them out, that you get a similar experience. I certainly had a good experience. And if you're looking for a vehicle inspection service in Australia, this is a good place to start. I hope this was useful to you, and thank you for watching.